All right, all right, all right. Hey, Colin, what did Joey Ramone say?
Joey Ramone always says, hey ho, let's go.
And that must mean it's time for Legends and Losers in part 2. Part 2.
Part 2?
Aujourd'hui, on parle français un petit peu. Pourquoi pas? Part 2 of
our Q&A session with Rhonda Smith.
Here it is. TiVo is the company that creates the category called DVR. They ultimately lose the category king position, and that's a different conversation. But in the beginning, they create the category. And they create the category by doing two things. Creating new language around the problem, which is the most important part, and then new languaging around the solution. And here's what I mean specifically. At the time, the most popular show on television is called Friends. And I know this is what they did because my dear friend Mike Homer, God rest his soul, was on the board. He's one of the most legendary marketing guys in history. He was the chief marketing officer for a company called Netscape. And there was a point in time where Netscape really fucking mattered. Anyway, here's what they say. Hey, why the fuck should you wait till Thursday night at 8 to watch Friends? You should be able to watch Friends whenever you want. And they call that, this is the genius part, they give that bullshit, what they, to quote the Big Lebowski, this aggression will not stand, man. They're creating a problem that you and I didn't know we had, right? Because we just hey, fuck, Thursday night at 8, that's when we watch Friends. We better be ready. Right? That's what we did. And they create this phrase called appointment viewing. And they say appointment viewing is bullshit. You should be able to watch Friends whenever you want. And the flip side of the coin to appointment viewing, they called it, in the beginning, they called it time shifting. Which is, I can do things on my time. That's what set up all this Netflix shit with binging and all that. It all starts there. And what makes the DVR, first of all, they get the category name genius, right? So they don't call it a VCR 2.0. Because 2.0 is what people put in front of something when they have no fuck idea what they're talking about. That 2.0 says we ran out of ideas. The other word, by the way, that says we ran out of ideas is solutions. When we use that in our marketing, we ran out of ideas. The other one I love is plus. When you see the word plus tacked onto a product or a brand name, what that says is this is where we couldn't fucking think of anything, so we just said fucking plus. But I digress. Appointment viewing frames the problem, and time shifting is the solution, and the mechanism that we use to time shift is called a DVR. So there's a VCR and a DVR, a digital video recorder. You follow me? Mm-hmm. So what's my point? What Chris Crawford needs is, where the fuck is our appointment viewing? I'll give you another example. The reason Mark Benioff, the founder of Salesforce.com, owns an island in Hawaii is not because he created cloud computing, although that's part of it. And I'm pretty sure this is not in the book, and I kick myself for it. So let me take you back to 1999, 1998, 1997. At the time, companies ran all their computing operations inside their company, and they bought software and paid maintenance, and their data and their servers and their applications all lived inside the company. That's what the universe was. Benioff shows up and says, hey, I want you to no longer buy software. You're going to rent it. And I'm going to run that shit on my end. And you're going to give me all of your customer and forecast data, and you're going to love it. Well, no fucking way. At the beginning of what we today call the cloud, everybody, and I mean everybody, said there is not a chance the chief information officer of pick your Fortune 500 company, General Electric, Walmart, Citibank, is going to give some fuck company their customer and forecast data to run on their data centers. That's never going to happen. Never mind the fact that they're never going to rent software. They want to fucking buy software, right? That's because that's what was true. Here's what makes the cloud happen. Benioff has a point of view called no software. And he frames the problem and he says, listen, running software in-house, doing modifications, maintaining those modifications, trying to do upgrades, all that stuff, fucking horrible. Let me handle all that. And oh, by the way, you don't even want to buy software. You want to rent it because when you buy it, the vendor doesn't really give a shit about you. When you rent it, I got to earn your trust. I got to earn your business every time we renew that contract, right? That's what he says. All that's genius. Here's the big genius. He reframes the way the world thinks about the current paradigm. So he says what SAP and Oracle and Siebel Systems is his main competitor at the time. They're the leader in customer relationship management and Salesforce automation. He calls what they do on-premise software.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody at Siebel or SAP running around saying we sell on-premise. That's not what they said. Not at all. The genius of on-premise, just like the genius of appointment viewing was, it was true. It was functionally accurate and therefore true. The Wall Street Journal could write a story that says Siebel sells on-premise CRM software. They could fucking write that. Most people, when they talk about their competitors, Chris, they just go, oh, those guys are lying assholes. That's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And when everybody says those guys are lying assholes, that forces an RFP. That's what happens. Because when everybody says the other guy's a lying asshole, the customer says, I don't know how to fucking figure this out, so I got to put you guys through a bikini contest. So put on your fucking bikinis and your high heels and fucking let's go, right?
Yeah.
So Benioff says on-premise. And then here's the other part of the genius. He imbues on-premise with negative meaning. So in the beginning, on-premise is just descriptive. But as he goes and gives speeches and talks to the press and does all the stuff that he does, he says, well, fuck, nobody's going to want on-premise. Look, you wouldn't want dick cancer, would you? And he makes on-premise software equal dick cancer. And as he does that, he shifts the entire world to where today, yesterday, Amazon S3 went down.
Mm-hmm.
They're the biggest cloud company on the planet. They are the cloud infrastructure. And when S3 went down, Netflix went down, Dropbox went down, and everything went down. That's how tied to the cloud we are. So in the space of 17, 18, 20 years, he changes the entire paradigm. But he does that because of on-premise, just like TiVo did with appointment viewing. So what's my point? I know this is a long answer to your question, but it's a critical question. Let's get clear about what is the problem we solve, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
And then the languaging matters. How do we language the problem so that people get that the current way of solving that problem is dick cancer?
Mm-hmm.
And so in the book, we talk about these things called from-tos or Frodos.
Yeah.
If you've been listening to the book, our buddy Sean, who does the reading, I think he calls them Fro-tos, but we always called them Frodos. Anyway, whatever, from-tos. You're educating the world to shift from the way it is today, which is the current construction, or if you will, design of the category, to the way you think it should be. And you have to explain that to them. This is what category design is about. If you just scream your brand, they don't know what you're talking about. But if you meet them where they are, today it's 8 o'clock, you got to watch Friends. 2, hey, this aggression will not stand, man. How about watch Friends whenever you want? From appointment viewing to time shifting, from on-premise to the cloud, from show up at a physical location and they don't have the fucking movie anyway, to I go to a website, I enter in what I want and it shows up in my mailbox, Blockbuster, Netflix. From I can't get fresh tasting peas in February to I buy frozen peas and I heat that shit up and it tastes pretty good. Bird's Eye Foods, right? And that's the truth about every category. When my mom, Jackie, who's in her 70s, was 16, she got a summer job working in a factory where my grandfather worked. In Canada, if I'm not mistaken, the legal minimum wage for women was 50 cents an hour, and the legal minimum wage for men was 75 cents an hour. And I asked her, I said, hey, Mom, what line of bullshit did they feed you to make that okay? Because she told me nobody even thought about it. And she said, well, you know, what everybody said at the time was that men provide for a family and women don't, because they just are going to work for a little while and meet a guy and get pregnant and be a housewife. So because men provide for a family and women don't, and women aren't really in the workforce that long, we need to pay men more because they support a family and women don't. And then a group of women came together and said, this aggression will not stand, man. And they created a point of view, which became a tagline. And that point of view was equal pay for equal work. And as that from to got traction because of that point of view, the laws changed. That's called social category design. Right? And so what categories designers do is they teach us to think about a problem and a solution in the way that we want. And so, Chris, to get back to you, focus on the problem. Write down everything you can think of about the problem. Write down a list of everything about the way people solve the problem in your industry today. Those are what you want to be froms. And then look at your product and everything that you guys do that your customers love, that is creating this awesome growth that you're experiencing, which is fucking amazing, right? And connect the two. Like, think if you were to go back and do Netflix, Blockbuster, it would be really easy, right? We used to drive to a store. Now we go to a website. Sometimes they had what we want. A lot of times they didn't. This time they always do, right? I pay late fees. It's a subscription service. There's no such thing as a late fee. We could write that out. There's 15 things we could contrast different between Blockbuster and Netflix, right? And the genius of Netflix is Reed Hastings made us think about video distribution to our homes completely differently, so much so that fucking Blockbuster goes bankrupt, right? That's what there is to do in your business. I know that was a long answer, so I'm going to stop. Thoughts, comments, questions?
Dynamite. Thank you so much for all that. Took a ton of notes, and I think getting clear on the problem really, really hits it. I mean, I haven't fucking done that, to put it simple. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And the Salesforce example is in the book. You talk about the bit too, where he got the permit to do the protest and all that stuff. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that, by the way, that stuff is just pure legendary marketing. And this is, if you circle all the way back to all my bitching about branding, right? When you do that kind of legendary stunt marketing to build your brand, and you have a legendary category design strategy, which is what Benioff is really doing, is conditioning the market to think differently about how it consumes software. and you're doing awesome stunt marketing and you're a warrior and all that stuff, yeah, well, then you get to buy an island in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dynamite. Love it. Thanks, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Wow, so much incredible information. The from and to sounds so easy.
You know, if all you do in your business is get really clear on the photos, you're going to have a breakthrough in your business.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Yeah. It's incredible to think like how much crap is out there. Chris and I had a conversation about, you know, like to be a coach, I have to be a marketer. Like I have to learn how to market and that's not what I'm good at.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So,
but it's actually, yes, you have to be good as a marketer, but you have to be legendary as a category designer.
yeah.
And marketing is part of category design. But what most people call marketing is called screaming features, screaming a brand name, and trying to get leads.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those things are all important. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But if you do that stuff in the context of somebody else's category design, you're playing somebody else's game. And remember, the category king gets 76% of the economics. And so by definition, like if the group of us now say, hey, we're going to launch a tire company. And we're just going to tell everybody our tires are better than Goodyear and those other guys and Pirelli. At best, we're fighting for a quarter of the market share. If we tell people we have a new category of tire, we got a shot. Now we got to articulate the photos with a POV.
Yep. Wow. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Hey, Chris, I've got
How you
one.
doing, man? Go ahead, Casey.
Oh, yeah. So
We'll get to you, Brian. Don't worry. I ain't
problem.
going anywhere until Brian and I have whatever conversation Brian wants to have. Yeah, go ahead, Casey.
yeah. So how do like
By the way, you get like triple awesome points on the beard and the stash.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
How do the way out or small E entrepreneurs, as you call them, what is the best, I guess, way for them to think about category design as well? Because a lot of this stuff, that you were just talking about, legendary marketing and all that, put together with all of this other stuff, can be a gigantic, or at least what seems like, undertaking whenever you are that way out entrepreneur instead of the way up entrepreneur, if I explain that well.
Yeah. So look, money and resources are helpful. Of course, there's a point, by the way, where they're not, but that's probably a different conversation. Let me give you an example that I love. It's a guy I know, and I'm actually a client of his. His name is Tom Schwab, and he and his partner run a company called Interview Valet. And what they do is they book your ass on podcasts. That's what they do. They're a podcast booking agency, and they do a fucking great job. I love them. And I was introduced to them by Maddie A. Those of you who know Maddie A. And so here's what they do. They are a lot more than just a booking agency, because they do all this stuff on the front end and the back end to help you monetize your appearance on podcasts. So for example, today, my friends at Interview Valet booked me on a incredibly popular podcast. And it's a great podcast for you to listen to, called Conscious Millionaire. And the reason I say it's a great cast for, I think, a lot of you to listen to, those of you who are solo entrepreneurs who are service providers. So you're a speaker, you're a coach, you're an author, you're all of the above, or any kind of services, small or services business. Conscious Millionaire is really the podcast for you. And JV Crum is literally a living legend. So Tom and I have a discussion about category design. And this is a small business run by two guys that's killing it. And they have created a category for themselves that expresses the fact that they're a lot more than just booking you on, because they do all this stuff on the front end and the back end to help you drive leads and promote yourself and essentially do everything possible to monetize the fact that you are, today I was on a podcast that gets to 10 million people, right? And so Tom helps me with my goal, my own goals for appearing on that show. So I don't just appear on the show, is my point. There's shit on the front end and the back end that they turnkey for me that help, kind of monetize my presence on the show. In my case, I'm not actually selling anything, but that's a different conversation. So that company comes up with what you could argue is a micro category. It's fucking this tight. It's tight. And it's called podcast interview marketing. That's what they do. And so it's genius. And they have created a category that is tight enough that they can be the king of it. Another example is my dear friend, and many of you, of course, know him, is Tim Rode. Tim, so in the case of Interview Valet, that's a new category. There's a couple other firms that do it, but podcasting's pretty new, and that's really new, and they have roots in direct marketing, and that's how they figure it out, right? In the case of Tim, being a realtor is not exactly a new category. However, Tim's a fucking genius.
Sorry, someone's writing heavy or something. If you can mute your line. Perfect.
Yeah, somebody's taking notes with enthusiasm.
Bigger, yes.
And so what Timmy does is, everybody understands what a realtor is. And I'm not an expert in this business, but this is what I understand. At the time, roughly 20 years ago, the paradigm in real estate is, here's how you build your business. You got to go and do the cuddle and the nut tickle with everybody in town, and you knock on the doors and you say, hey, if you're ever thinking about you're selling your house, you can call me. And by the way, I would love to do a free assessment of your fucking house, and I'll tell you what I think it's worth, and we'll value it for you, and so that you can kind of understand where you are in the market, and all this bullshit that's sort of trying to do a cuddle so that you get to people before they think about ever selling or listing their house, right? That's sort of the paradigm of what realtors get taught. Tim says, fuck that. I only want to deal with people who are serious about selling their house. And so he develops a point of view that gets expressed in a tagline, but it's not just a fucking tagline. He is literally redesigning the way people in Manteca, California think about the criteria for selecting a realtor. And so the tagline is, call Tim Rode and start packing. So what he's doing is he's saying, if you're serious about selling your house, call me. And until then, screw you.
I was looking for the jingle, but I couldn't find it. He turned it into a commercial.
He did a lot of commercials. My favorite is the one where he's on the bridge in the suit with the briefcase, and he says, I'll jump at the chance to list your house, and he jumps off the thing with a bungee jump tied to his cord off the bridge, and he screams, "Call Tim Rode and start packing!" Right? But so what ends up, and he does legendary marketing around all this zany shit. He buys TV ads. I mean, he lays it down hard on the marketing, and the branding. But make no mistake, what makes it work is he's saying to the market, yeah, there's all these other realtors. You call me when you're ready to do real serious business. And it works. He becomes the category king in Manteca, and he retires at 40. And in, I think it's less than 15 years, sells 2,500 houses. And so by reimagining the problem, that is to say, I only want to do business with people who want to sell their house now. He becomes a category king. You follow me?
And then he does it again.
Yeah, well, we talk about that too. So however you come at it, Casey, right? whether it's a net new category or it's a reimagining of the problem in an existing category. The power of category design exists because in the Tim example, if you're a realtor in Manteca when he does that, you now got to respond to his point of view.
Right.
He's setting the agenda for what the criteria is in the category for making a choice. You know, the way I explain it to people in the B2B world is, in the B2B world, the reality is most companies do this thing called a RFP, a request for proposal. And the truth about RFPs is most of them are written in concert with a vendor, because you have to have a lot of technical knowledge about whatever the thing is you're buying typically. And so the question I always ask people in the B2B space is, who would you rather be? The vendor that's helping the customer write the RFP or the vendor responding to the RFP? What category design is writing, or in the case of Tim Road, rewriting the RFP, translation criteria, for how people should think about making this purchase decision. And so whether you're Tim Road or Steve Jobs, you're conditioning the market to think about a problem and a solution in the way that you want them to. And when they accept your point of view, boom, you're the category king. Does that make sense, Casey?
Absolutely. Yeah, that helps a lot.
And that stash is gonna be a multiplier on all of that.
I see so many graphics with it. Totally.
Got on a cold brew coffee label, so.
All right, Brian, there was something cooking for you before we got to Casey. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you again for your generosity of your wisdom and your desire to make a difference, because you're already making a difference in my thinking, and it's just making it more expansive in the talents and skills that I have. I'm a relative newcomer to the whole entrepreneurial quest. I have a 32-year background in television and storytelling, and so I've spent most of my life in dark rooms making television, telling stories. And so I think the thing that really has really kind of you've got your hooks into me in category design and category creation in the storytelling aspect of it. I also have a passion for writing and expressing myself speaking wise. And so what would you have in terms of advice for someone like me who in my and now I've been kind of, you know, forced into this entrepreneurial world through downsizing from my corporate job a couple years ago. So now I'm providing services to small businesses, and in the course of doing that, I'm running across opportunities where I see, you know, someone with a really kind of ingenious sort of approach to something as, you know, what we would think of as, you know, something sort of simple as sleeping on a pillow. And so I'm thinking of I'm trying to define ways to, I have a client who I'm doing a video for who has organic sleeping products. It uses organic wool and organic cotton. And this was something that I didn't even know about. And so there's a problem that exists in our sleep. You know, we're breathing in, you know, gases and things like that I had no idea prior to meeting him. And so what would you suggest to someone like me in terms of approaching a potential client, in terms of, you know, taking their business to that next level? And you know, and using a category design approach. And also, I want to get out of this day rate mentality of me editing and providing production services, kind of, and leveraging my skills and talents to, you know, structure a deal where I could become a category designer, a CMO, so to speak, for a company like that. So would you have any advice for someone like that in terms of transforming what their skill set is into category design?
Absolutely. Let me get a little tactical too, Brian. I am generally, and I know a lot of the world works this way. I am generally not a fan of by hour fee. And so I'll share with you one of my favorite questions. Is this a fair exchange of value? And I'll share with you a story. One of my favorite artists, like painting artists, and I don't know shit about art, but I got a couple artists that I think are cool. And one of them, of course, is Pablo Picasso. And there's a story about Picasso. I don't know if it's true, but it's a great fucking story. So I'll tell you the story. Picasso's sitting in a cafe in Paris, smoking a cigarette. And this lady comes up to him and says, "Hey, Mr. Picasso, I'm one of your biggest fans. I'm sorry to bother you. Would you mind doodling something on this napkin piece of paper for me? And I will pay you whatever you think it's worth." So he's just sure. And he doodles up something on the napkin and he hands it to her and he looks at her and he says, "That'll be $40,000, please." And she says, "It took you 20 seconds to do that." And he said, "No, that's where you're wrong. It took me 60 years to be able to do that." And so the thing about the solopreneur world that makes me crazy is it a fair exchange of value? And look, I know a lot of people bill by the hour, but I would encourage you to think about what's a fair exchange of the value. And the fact is, the customer doesn't give a shit if you could do it in 15 minutes or 15 hours. What they're paying all of us for is an outcome or a result. So, and the bigger the impact that result makes, the more value it has. And so that's the first thing, Brian, I would ask you to think about is there a way for me to market and sell, for lack of a better word, packages, and price those packages based on value? So that's the first thing that I would share with you. The second thing I'll share with you is something that I think a lot of services businesses, and particularly niche or smaller services businesses, don't necessarily understand, which is a small services company or a niche services company, I would include McKinsey in that, gets paid for one reason: what you might think of as a skill gap. So here's what I mean by that, Brian. The client is in a place where they need to produce an outcome, and they don't have the skill set internally to produce that outcome. So they go outside because there is a, for lack of a better description, skill gap between what they can do internally and the outcome that they need. And they go, fuck, we need some help. Category design for a niche services business is fundamentally about making that skill gap as wide as fucking possible. Because the bigger the perceived skill gap, the more money people pay. I'll give you a simple example. I have a neuromuscular disease. I need help with that disease. I don't know shit about neurology. I did not graduate as a doctor from Stanford with a degree in neurology. That's not what happened. And so it took a while for me to know I had a neurological disease. And then when I found out I had one, figuring out how to solve the fuck problem was fuck hard. And I have an unbelievable family doctor, and she needed a lot of help, right? And then we finally found the doctor. And I would pay that doctor my net worth to help solve the problem. Because for me, my neurological disease is untreated is going to stop me from things like surfing and skiing, and those things are, and martial arts, and those things are part of my fucking identity. And so they're my life. And so I will pay whatever is required, because the skill gap between me and the UCSF Stanford doctor in the domain of neurology is huge, and I have a problem there, and I want to solve it. You follow me? So what does that mean? Category design for services businesses is all about articulating the skill gap. And that translates to the problem. The reason McKinsey is McKinsey is because Marvin Bauer, who I don't give a fuck what anybody says, is the founder of McKinsey and the category designer of management consulting, created this perception of a skill gap that says McKinsey's smarter than you. And so when a Fortune 500 CEO wants to go do a $32 billion acquisition and wants to make sure the board is on board, she can't just go out and say, hey, this is my fuck opinion, let's go do the $32 billion acquisition. But if she shows up with a phone book from McKinsey that says this $32 billion is a really smart thing to do, the board gets comfortable because everybody knows how smart McKinsey is. And that's because they spent, I don't know, I think it's 60 years, I might be off a little bit, but plus or minus, building the skill gap that says on strategery, McKinsey's smarter than you. Does that make any sense, Brian?
Absolutely. No, I mean, if I hear you right, it's like the better that I can articulate a client's problem and their desire for a better outcome and provide the right messaging in terms of category designing, the more I increase that, what you say as the skill gap.
Yes. And to be 1,000% transparent with you, and I think we say it in the end of the book, I'm pretty sure we fucking do. The purpose of the book is to, in a book about category design, we created the need for category design. And we created a skill gap, because guess what?
Mm-hmm.
We argue in the book, and I fundamentally believe it in the bottom of my soul and the balls of my soul, that the three big things that matter are company design, product design, and category design. And then, of course, the ability to execute on all three of those things. Mm-hmm. Now, when I go give a speech like I did yesterday, and I say there are three seminal things that are going to be required for this company to take 76% of the economics in this category, and I lay that down, and I say they're equally important. And so category design is a third of what's going to make this company successful. Well, guess what? Everybody in the audience goes, holy fuck, this is the first time we heard about category design. We're in fucking trouble, because apparently category design is a third of what's required for us to be successful, and we wouldn't know category design if it fucking landed on our fucking head. That guy knows category design. Boom, skill gap.
Got it.
Now, just to be clear, that wasn't my motivation for writing the book, but that's what happens. And so, what I'm saying to you, Brian, is let's get clear about the problem.
Mhm.
Let's find our on-premise. And this isn't as politely as I want to say it, but I'm going to say it unpolitely because I don't know how else to say it. You also need your category design. You're not a video producer. You're something else. I don't know what it is yet.
Right. No,
But-
that's exactly right.
Right? Because video producer
Right. No.
sits in a context that people understand, and they know that like video producers make whatever it is an hour, and so I order that off the shelf, and it's like it's a commodity. Video producer, banana, fucking same thing.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm not being a shithead,
No, I know.
but
You're
like
being truthful, man. You're speaking it.
it's a category that already exists, right? It's just like when I say, oh, sure, I'll give you a simple CrossFit workout. Well, CrossFit workout's $25. That's what it is. Okay. Somebody said that. Okay. So if I'm a physical fitness trainer, $25 for a drop-in class is kind of what you pay because CrossFit set that price, or maybe it's $20. I don't know, but whatever the fuck it is, you follow me? Because I'm playing their game. To quote Bix, I'm living in somebody else's thinking. And so the value equation around that when I'm a video producer is whatever an hour. And if I'm, I don't know what the prices are, but what's the average price in your industry for per hour for a video producer?
Well, it depends on the producer, but I mean,
sure.
But
and low end to high end, what's the range?
720 on the high end for, I'm thinking my background is as an editor.
Okay.
As a finishing editor, top end, you're looking at $750 a day. Low end, you're looking at $175 to $250 a day. I mean, so it's like it spans the gamut. And this is the challenge that I'm facing. I'm wanting to reinvent myself and apply the skills that I have in the last 30 years in a completely new way.
Yes.
And
the degree to which you live in a paradigm, in a category created by other people, is the degree to which you're trapped. In this case, literally, you're economically trapped in their paradigm because the world has agreed that a fair value exchange for a video producer is between those numbers. And so if you want to break out of that, guess what? You need to be something other than a video editor producer, right?
Correct. Yes. Right.
And then you can set the pricing. The 5 hour energy guys, I forget what the actual number is, but I think it might be 10x per ounce compared to Coke. Right? Like that 5 hour energy is a fucking expensive thing.
Yeah.
Right? And Coke is fucking cheap as shit. And both of them are going to get you jazzed up so you can keep going for an extra hour. Right?
Right.
So, and then this part's also really important. We want to be forward on our skis with our category design, but we can't be so forward that nobody knows what the fuck we're talking about. A simple example of that is Henry Ford. If Henry Ford shows up and says, hey, the automobile, everybody says, what you talking about, Willis? Because we don't know what an automobile is. So he meets the category where they are, and he carries them into the future. And the way he does that, does anybody know what he calls it? Mo, you're on mute if you're talking.
Motor car.
Is it automobile?
No.
It's a horseless carriage, isn't it?
Yes, Chris, it's a horseless carriage. Pay attention, guys, to what shit's called. These fucking devices that we all live our life on used to be called a wireless phone. So the category is in the context of what it's not, because we understand the prior category. Today, we now call this thing a smartphone. So we're now moving from describing it as what it's not, and we're attempting to call it what it is. my suspicion in the next 10 years is the word phone will probably not be in the name of what we call this fuck thing.
We'll call it a fuck thing.
This is my fuck thing.
Nice.
And so I don't have the answer for you, Brian, but what I would suggest is start thinking about the problem. Start thinking about what a fair exchange of value is. And the other thing I'd say to you, buddy, and this is hard. I get this is hard. And a lot of people, I'm about to say something. A lot of people, when I say things like what I'm about to say, oh, that's really easy for you because you fucking retired. Rah, rah, rah. You're talking to a guy who started with the Yellow Pages, a phone, and a piece of shit clone computer. That's how, and telefucking marketing. That's how it started. Okay. So don't be confused. And I was this way when I had nothing. So here's what there is to do. Don't sell out your value. Grow a set of titanium fucking balls and tell people. And you know, there's an interesting thing. When you price at the high end of the market, it blows people's heads off. It really does. And have the courage of your convictions. It's $15,000 a day.
Right.
Practice saying it. Because I'm a fucking master,
Right.
fucking ninja sensei.
Yeah.
That'll be $40,000, please, Picasso. One of my favorite stories about this, and we just talked about this on another show I was on, is Studio 54. The way Studio 54 worked is, what's this? I'm going to look it up because it's going to drive me crazy. There was two guys who founded Studio 54, and it was a shitty warehouse kind of space in New York. And who the fuck's going to go to a shitty warehouse space in New York? And the way they made it work is what today you could think of as, I'm trying to figure out who the goddamn founders are, you assholes.
I'll look for you.
Okay, thank you, love. Is one of the founders was inside and one of the founders was outside. And the guy who was outside had the genius to put a red velvet rope in front of the door. And then when people got, they're like, oh, well, what's in there? He's like, oh, no, this is not for you. Well, no, what's in there? Well, it's a nightclub. Oh, can we go in and have a drink? No, not you. And all of a sudden a line starts to emerge. I think his name was Steve. Was it Steve?
Steve Rubell and Ian Schrager.
Thank you. Ian Schrager's still alive. Steve unfortunately passed away. Ian is the founder of the Paramount Hotel and a whole bunch of a chain of sort of very she sort of ding-dongy supermodel hangout New York hotels. But Steve was the guy that stood there in front of the velvet rope and picked and chose who could come in. And when you tell somebody they can't have something, they lose their fucking shit. So what I'm saying to you, Brian, is let's get real clear on what your category design is, centered around a problem, and connect the problem to your superpowers. You have fucking superpowers. I guarantee you, buddy, and I mean this with love, and that's a corny thing to say in a conversation like this. You are underrunning your value. I can guarantee it. And so when we get real clear what your superpower is, and we get real clear what the problem is, and then we say, okay, what's a fair exchange of value for that? Like, no kidding. Not like some nose-picking goddamn video fuck jockey. But like a master sensei who knows how to produce a business result through the strategic use of video. And have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Everything changes.
Beautiful.
The minute Tim Rhodes says, call Tim Rhodes and start packing, everything changes. Because the unspoken is louder than the spoken, always. So when Tim says, call Tim Rhodes and start packing, the unspoken is, hey, if you're not fucking serious about selling your house fast, fuck you, don't call me. Call all the other wankers, waste all their time. They'll do the free assessment. They'll do the nut tickles. You can have all the looky-loos, all the tire kickers, all the fucks go here. When you're for real, you fucking come here. That's the unspoken with call Tim Rhodes and start packing. We want the same thing for Brian. You know, it's like when you have a production that needs to produce a material outcome in your business, I'm your guy. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine in the event business, and the creative people in the event business, just like in the ad business, will go and do all of the creative and present this creative to a prospect in hopes that they'll fucking buy. And I said to him, that is the most retarded category design in history. You guys are going to do all this thinking. You're going to put campaigns or event themes and stage designs and fucking big screen and all this stuff, right? Images and branding and all. You're going to do all that stuff for free to try to get the work. You have devalued yourself by doing that. I'll give you another example. A good buddy of mine who's a legendary entrepreneur and CEO in Silicon Valley recently called me. And he's trying to figure out what he wants to do next. He's got a couple ideas to start a new company, but he's also thinking if he found the right opportunity, he would join as CEO. He's a very seasoned guy. And so we're talking about his life and his career and what he might do, and some people I might know that, might be good to connect him with as he sort of thinks about the next stage, blah, 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 blah. And as part of that discussion, he sends me his resume and he says, could you give me your feedback on my resume? And I said to him, and this is not his name, I said to him, Jimmy, you want my real feedback on your resume? He says, yeah. I said, why the fuck do you have a resume? Because you know what my resume is? And this has been true since I was in my 20s, Brian. My resume is I'm fucking Christopher Lochhead. Really?
I get it, man.
And I was the sales rep at Play Bigger. And when I would talk to people who didn't know us, which, happened, they would try to make me an agency. They would try to make me submit to some fucking agency consulting fuck process. And I would say to them, we're not doing any of that. Are you out of your mind? Go fuck yourself. If you think that you can solve your problem with an RFP or an agency and you want to have some kind of consulting bake-off, I'm in the wrong room. Go fuck yourself. Go solve that problem with some nose-picking consultants. Position yourself or be positioned. I told this CEO buddy of mine, never, ever submit yourself to their nose-picking candidate process. You're a 50-year-old legendary CEO in Silicon Valley. Fuck that. And he was like, you know what? You're right. If they want to look at something, they can look at my fucking LinkedIn profile. So what's my point? Position yourself or be positioned, Brian. Don't let the world put you in their box. That's what category design is about, buddy. It's about taking a stand for who I am, the problem I solve, the value I deliver, and therefore differentiating myself. That's what it's about.
Beautiful, man.
Wow.
And look, have the courage of your convictions. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard when the mortgage is on the line. I know it's hard when the rent's on the line. Okay. You're talking to a guy that if I didn't close the sale, I was going to get thrown out of my fucking apartment. I understand. But in that moment, if we quiver, we get submitted to their fucking process. I'm fucking Brian Sheehan, motherfuckers. You call me when it matters. And when it matters, the price doesn't matter. Here's what I always said to people when I was selling at Play Bigger. If it works, if this business becomes a category king, what you pay us is immaterial. And if it doesn't work, what you pay us is immaterial. So if what we do is one of the three things that determines the success of your business, then you fucking pay us. And if you don't want to pay us, that's fine. But don't be confused. We fucking get paid, and we get paid a lot because it matters. And by the way, if you think you can go hire some nose-picking marketing consultant that's going to help you solve this problem, then you should go do that. Because if you have a problem that a nose-picking marketing consultant can solve, then that's not the problem we solve. Studio 54 marketing. And it also, in our case, I happen to believe it was true. And I happen to believe I have the evidence to prove it. But you know what? I'm not even going to have that dumb conversation. I'm not going to prove it. The last sales call I went on at Play Bigger, and this is when I decided I was going to retire, was about a year ago. We got referred into a red hot software company in San Francisco by their lead investor who's on their board, and he's one of the most powerful investors in Silicon Valley. If I said his name, everybody knows who this guy is, the investor. So you couldn't possibly come in with a better referral, right? Me and Al go into this meeting, and the CEO and his co-founder sit there, and I forget exactly the words they say, but they essentially say, sell us. You know, we're not sure. We're product guys. We're technology guys. We think this marketing stuff's bullshit. I don't even know what this category shit means. Sell me. And when I left that meeting, see, because when I drive to San Francisco from fucking Santa Cruz, you took my whole fucking day. You took a day of my life. Fuck you. Fuck you, right? And so that strong conviction about your value and your differentiation and it goes back to the Rhonda discussion, what you will and you won't tolerate. You don't get to waste a day of my life to have me come here sell you. I'm never doing this again, ever. That's what I said after that sales call. I am never, ever, ever going on a sales call again, ever. Now, I'm not saying we don't have to sell, but you get my point, right? I'm never going to submit myself to some nose-picking process for these people because I say I stand alone. That's category design at the individual level.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. It's
Yeah,
right.
man. Wow.
I feel like he's got at a plant medicine ceremony.
I don't know what that is, but I think I should drink some more whiskey before it happens.
Hey, Chris, I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways because I think you're on a roll, and I'm really curious what you think about this. So you're talking about marketing the category, not exactly your brand, but Tony Robbins talks about marketing the problem, not the solution. So is there a difference?
No, it's the same thing. I agree with Tony.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
I already knew the answer to that kind of just by listening to you.
Absolutely. Benioff, no software, no software, no software. That's exactly right. And here's the thing. We talked about the skill gap with Brian.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing. When we're marketing the problem, we're increasing the perceived size of the skill gap.
So it's like what Harv Eker says, whatever you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on a problem, then you're only going to focus on that problem. And then I come in, hey, guess what? Got the solution. Or somebody comes in and says, hey, I got the solution for that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know about that, because I think you can't sit in your basement, drinking beer, smoking pot, focusing on the problem, and then the world shows up. But conceptually, I get what you're saying, Sean.
Yeah. Because, I think we're more likely to focus on negativity than we are positivity. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, oh my God, I got this huge problem. Whatever will I do?
Yeah, you probably hear this, right? How do we be more of a aspirin and less of a vitamin?
Yeah.
That's what that is. That's called
Yep.
category design. That's called framing the problem, right?
Yep.
Because you and I know, hey, we got a headache, or we got a muscle pull, or whatever it is, and like we take an Advil, and the headache or the muscle pull goes away. It's like, hey, I have a very clear problem. It really fucking hurts. I take this thing and it stops hurting.
Yep.
As opposed to the vitamin, which is, hey, take this pill and maybe you'll live a little longer. I don't know. Yeah.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah. And I probably said this earlier, but too many solutions without a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on in the business world.
Yep.
There are 2 million apps in the Apple iTunes App Store, and there are another 2 million in the Google one. And yes, there's some overlap. So let's say there's 3 million in total. Maybe there's 1 million overlap, right? So if you're an app vendor trying to get us to download your shit onto our phone, you're competing against, let's call it 3 million other apps for attention. Forget how many might be in your category, right? And so my point is, you have to think muscle cars are cool before you start thinking about Mustangs and Corvettes.
Right.
And so in the sea of 3 million apps, I got to understand what your floppo is. If you scream floppo at me and I don't get like what floppo is, like there's 3 million people screaming at me trying to get you to download your app. That's why the category matters. That's why categories make companies. That's why categories make careers, right? People say things, one of the things we say in the book is it's a tattoo parlor, and you either decide what your tattoo is going to be or not. When people talk about us, they say things. So when I describe Rhonda to somebody, I say something. She either tells me what to say or I freeball it myself. My concern for Zoom is they're doing no category design. They haven't told me, I love the product and I want to see these guys successful. I don't know them from a hole in the wall, but I get what they're up to, and it's awesome, and they're funded by buddies of mine. But in the absence of category design, they're letting the world decide what their tattoo is. And if they wake up with Mike Tyson's tattoo on their fuck face and they don't like it, too bad. Category design is declaring.
You don't want to end up with a bad tattoo on your face.
Not particularly on your face. It's bad enough on your ass.
Yeah.
Where you can hide it from most people.
I always say having children is like deciding to have tattoos on your face. You better be sure.
Yeah, because they're the gift that keeps on giving, right?
That's funny. Well, wow. I'm not sure. I don't want to interrupt or excuse me, cut anybody else off, but I think, Mo, did you have any questions? You joined us late.
No, I just want to quickly just thank him for Chris. I don't remember when I first saw you. It was either One Life or Go Abundance or something, man. And I think I've been applying your stuff without realizing it in my business. And now that I'm listening to this, it's kind of coming full circle. And I'm a concrete contractor, and it's just the whole value and just making sure that people realize, yeah, someone else might charge, half of what I charge per square foot, but they're not Mo, So I guess I've kind of adopted a lot of this stuff, man. It's pure gold, and I really appreciate it.
I'm glad. Thank you for letting me know, Mo. And I hope, have you had a chance to read Play Bigger?
No, man, but it's on the way.
And I'll tell you what I tell everybody. If you read it and you think it's a loser, let me know and I'll send you $50.
Mo's in my accountability group. We're in a mastermind. There's no chance that's happening. I talk about you every day.
Well, here's what I know. The category design lens makes a material difference. And so you think about a business like concrete contracting and think, okay, well that, you know, how could it be, how could you possibly redesign that category? You can. I've worked with guys in businesses like that where we've absolutely done that in home building, in construction. Absolutely.
Cool, man.
Listen, if Tim Rode can reimagine the realtor category, then we can reimagine the concrete category.
I've been brainstorming for months. Like, how could I, you know, it's not concrete, it's beautification, or just coming up with different little, you know, subcategories or something for it. But
the other thing that you'll probably find when you read the book is it will force you to rigorously declare what's intuitive for you. It takes the implicit and makes it explicit in terms of how we're going to educate a market to think about a problem and solution in the way that we want them to. Because it's only when they embrace a problem in a particular way that they then want to buy the solution, right? Nobody buys a solution without a problem. And just like Tim reimagine the definition of what a realtor is, we can reimagine what the definition of a contractor, a concrete contractor is, for sure. You might even change. See, languaging is fun. I'm a student of languaging, right? So am I a concrete contractor? Or am I don't know, I'm making stuff up. Am I a foundation creator?
yeah, that's hard. I mean, it's just.
I mean, I don't know. That could be a dumb idea. I have no idea, right? That could be as dumb as feed mayonnaise to tuna fish. But that's where you start. You start to think about, okay, so what is concrete really? What problem does it solve for people? It's funny. I had my concrete contractor here yesterday. So we built our house ground up, and our concrete guy's an awesome guy. And I have idiot friends, and my idiot friends come over and we watch fights and we get drunk. And then my idiot friends spar in my house on my concrete floor, which is fine, except when they wear frickin' tennis shoes. So now my frickin' beautiful floor is scratched up and they got to come, you know, clean that shit up for me. But it's interesting, you know, in the discussion, our concrete guy's awesome. And the discussion with him yesterday, it's like, you know what? It's just like the Big Lebowski. This concrete floor really does tie the room together. And so as crazy as it might sound to most people, Mo, there's a way to have a very different conversation about the power of concrete and the difference it can make in your house or your building or your bridge or your, you know, whatever, right? There's a fun conversation you could have with people.
Oh man, not the concrete.
You're so concrete.
Ours is harder than everyone else's. We don't crack under pressure.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Is there anything else, guys?
Look forward to catching up in Santa Cruz at the end of the month, man.
Yeah, Chris, I'm glad you're coming. Thank you. I'm so stoked that you're coming. I'm so stoked that you're helping us raise money for One Life. That's very big of you. And we got a great session scheduled for you guys. And we're going to have some fun afterwards. And yeah, if there's anything you want to send me ahead of time to educate me a little bit more about your business, by all means, and, you know, PowerPoint decks or anything, you know, even your website, just, you know, let me know what you want me to be thinking about heading into that session. But make no mistake, there's nothing that would make me happier than to see Chris Crawford design a legendary category and be that category king.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll
I'm
connect
stoked.
you. I'll connect you too.
Cool.
Yeah.
And there was mention of getting in the water the next day if there's some waves. That sounds pretty good. But you have to keep in mind I'm coming from the central of the continent, so we get some lake surf here. Some wind swell picks up, and we'll get some head high waves some days. I'm stoked to get out in the water if it works.
Yeah, it's a little different in what I like to call the Pacific Ocean, and yeah, we'll probably, depending on how many guys want to surf, we may bring in a pro surf coach, but because I learned late in life, I started surfing in my late 30s, early 40s. I have tremendous empathy for how fucking hard it is. And so, I'll be gentle with you, and I'll try to push you into some waves, and the likelihood.
A bit.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll get up. If there's any kind. The good news about Santa Cruz is we probably have 280 to 300 days a year where if you want to surf, there's something.
Well, cool.
So we'll cross our fingers that there's some waves. But I surfed today, and it was it was probably a C day, maybe a C plus day. But I got one screamer in about an hour and a half. So I'll take it. And listen, any day, where we are, it's so beautiful. The otters are out, the seals are out. Today was a gorgeous day. I got some sun. It was, and so for me, it just starts with, okay, so I'm in the Pacific Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else after that's a bonus.
Yeah, 100%.
So we'll have some fun no matter what. We'll get you wet.
What's the water temperature like? Wetsuit?
Freezing.
Yeah, you're in a 4.3. Let's see. Hold on. I could tell you, if you give me 2 seconds, I could tell you exactly what the temperature is.
I'll probably pack one to bring it.
I have a bunch of suits. So, and then of course you can rent them. Air temp 57, water temp 54 to 56 right now.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so it'll be about the same, maybe a smidgen warmer when you're here, but it'll be about the same in the mid to high, if we're lucky, 50s. But a 4.3 is plenty, and you won't get cold. I mean, 2 hours in the water and a 4.3, most people don't get cold.
No, dude, we're still in the water here at wearing 5.4s because it's coming out. Buddy of mine was in the other day. He come out and he had ice all on his beard. It's a little cold for this guy, but still getting it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
My pleasure. I can't wait to have you out here.
Love it.
All right, folks. Anything else? Mo, anything else from you? Casey, Brian, Sean?
Chris, I appreciate it.
This has been so awesome.
It's been amazing, man. Thank you.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for engaging.
Love you too, Chris, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rhonda, for connecting the dots here.
Yeah, this is such a great idea.
Rhonda,
Yeah. So I have more of this coming. So I know some pretty cool people. So little forums where we get to sit down and have conversation and really learn deep and get our individual stuff. So keep following my stuff and keep coming, and let's all stay close.
Sounds good.
We're all in this together.
Woo, dance party.
Take care.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Be legendary, guys.
Yes. All right.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, there you have it.
There it is.
There it is in all of its glory. Thanks for checking out Legends and Losers. Please subscribe on iTunes, and note this podcast is not free. It costs 2 minutes to give us a legendary review and subscribe on iTunes.
Thank you again for making us a smash hit show.
We love all your shout outs. We love your hits on Facebook and LinkedIn, and just it tickles our ivories to know we're making some kind of a difference out there, doesn't it, Colin?
Yeah, and where can they find us?
They can find us on Facebook.com/groups/legends and losers.
And on the Twitter at Legends Losers.
You can email us blackhole@legendsandlosers.com, and feel free to share this podcast and tell all your friends. We would like to thank Equity Directory, the invite only of entrepreneurs and startup talent exchanging work for equity.
And HarperCollins, Play Bigger, how pirates, dreamers, and innovators create and dominate markets.
Our friends at One Life Fully Lived, helping people dream, plan, and live their best lives.
Kiva.org, loans that change lives.
Our dear friends at Snap Sports, how the action sports world makes money on photo revenue.
Verve Coffee in Santa Cruz, California.
Bell Destination Events at belldestinationevents.com. If you're getting married in Hawaii, make it a Bell event.
Flourishing Leadership Institute at leadtoflourish.com.
NetSuite's Sweet World in Las Vegas, Nevada, April 24th to 27th. I will be there. Check it out.
It's time.
The Life Transformation Radio Podcast with our dear friend Sean Douglas.
Amateur, the great book by Dushka Zapata.
The B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast with Brian Burns.
The Horn Group, legendary PR in Silicon Valley and New York.
We would like to remind you that today's information is provided to you solely for informational purposes.
Warning, all episodes contain nuts.
This oddcast is the sole property of the Legends and Losers Oddcast Network. Feel free to share it and shout it out.
And share the shit out of it.
And that too. We want to remind you that you can't be a legend without being a loser.
Don't be lame. Get out of the passing lane.
Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be category designers.
There's no such thing as a participation award.
Hallelujah. Listen to Tom Waits.
This podcast really ties the room together.
And we need to apologize to Oscar Munoz. We had to, what did they call it? We had to him?
We had to reaccommodate him.
We reaccommodated him, and we ran out of time for Oscar, the CEO of United Airlines. Sorry, Oscar.
Be legendary, people.
Thank you.